On October 27, 2017, I attended a showing of Nosferatu Reinvented at the Wrights Theater in DuBois, Pennsylvania. The performance consisted of a screening of the classic 1922 German silent horror film Nosferatu and featured musical accompaniment scored by professional musician, composer, and inventor Kurt Coble and performed by the PAM Band, a robotic orchestra designed and built by Mr. Coble. Mr. Coble has been a violinist on Broadway for 25 years, the last 20 as a member of the orchestra for Phantom of the Opera. He's played with symphony orchestras, performed chamber music, and played on movie soundtracks. He is a composer of what he has called unpopular music and an inventor. The PAM Band, an acronym for Partially Artificial Musicians, consists of 10 instruments wired with control boards, servo motors, and mechanical fingers that play refurbished musical instruments. The initial development of the PAM Band dates back over 20 years and has been an ongoing project ever since. Mr. Coble has composed numerous pieces for the robotic band, ranging from treatments of classical music to original compositions to a score for the silent movie Metropolis, and most recently the score for Nosferatu Reinvented. He's toured widely with the band, giving the general public a taste of a different type of musical performance. Outside of the PAM Band, Kurt Coble has been involved in other aspects of robotic music. One of his projects was the 2011 Hearts and Harmony project in Novi Sad, Serbia.
And my unique involvement here is to work with a collection of percussion instruments that I have invented that allow people with physical challenges to interface with musical instruments.
The PAM Band is one of Mr. Coble's greatest inventions, and is much of, or more of, a feature that Nosferatu Reinvented as the film itself. I attended 3 showings of the event, recorded portions of his introductions to the performances. These provide a brief glimpse into the mind and thought processes of the man behind this remarkable show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nosferatu Reinvented. This is my new piece. It's a combination of all the things I'm interested in, music, composition, electronics, experimental music, theater, all the things that I enjoy working on and being involved with. I have been involved with just about every aspect of the entertainment industry. I've been working on Broadway for almost 20 years. I've worked on film scores, symphony orchestras, chamber orchestra. I've had a very blessed and rich life. And all of those experiences I now have passed on to my virtual prodigy. I started doing experiments in, the term is automata, which means self-playing instruments, similar to the player piano. About 20 years ago, I was working at Lion King, a Disney production, and we came about 5 minutes from going on strike, the orchestra, because we were protesting the use of this new technology called the Virtual Orchestra. And the Virtual Orchestra essentially is digital information that's been captured through samples. And it allows them to speed up and slow down without changing the pitch. And this was always the limitation with using tape. When you would use a tape as your accompaniment, you were enslaved to that tape. The tape dictated what you did as a performer. And as a performer, we live in those microseconds, those small partials of time that make the difference between a performance that just lifts you off the ground or a performance that puts you to sleep. And it's all in those details. that's what the PM band allows me to do as a composer. I can control 1 second into 100 equal subdivisions. And that is that's so small, you wouldn't even know it. That's the world of subliminal advertising. You know how they would flash a Coca-Cola on the screen for 1/20th of a second? And so I have the ability to compose music that would go so quickly, you would never be able to hear it. It's the ultimate in being an obscure composer. These instruments allow me to control rhythmic gestures and rhythmic patterns that allow for such incredible complexity that if I took one of the pieces from the Pam Band score you're going to hear tonight and put it on music stand for a guitar player, a violin player, a drummer, they take one look at it and walk out. There's no way that they could ever even begin rehearsing this stuff because of the complexity. So it's kind of it's a combination of therapy for my years of working in the music business. It's my ghoulish message to the world that we have to continue to support music education, arts education, because as budgets get cut, the funding dries up and the people don't have these experiences. And there's now irrefutable evidence that there is something quite wonderful with children learning how to play instruments and being exposed to music. So that's something I'm very concerned about because I'm thinking about audiences in the future. For the audience today, I am putting my, maybe this is a public display of some kind of psychosis, that there's a fine line between art and madness. And so what I've done is I've taken a film from the past and I'm trying to bring it back to life with 21st century technology, 21st century musical sensibilities. You will hear tonight examples of classical music, 12-tone music, rock music, jazz, some folk, some minimalist, world music. It's all here. And the challenge for you as an audience is to be able to connect the film with the music and to truly enjoy what I think is a new theatrical experience. So I'm both honored and delighted to present this work here tonight in Du Bois. I keep hearing, oh, Du Bois, it's a small town. I go, no, it's not. This is a big town. You know? And I'm originally from the area, and so I feel very honored to be able to come back and present and show what I've been up to, and I am hoping to establish a relationship with this theater. I think this theater is an absolute gem. I've enjoyed my time here tremendously, and the folks that work here have been great. And I look forward to presenting new projects. This is almost a world premiere. It's not 100% done. This is the 5th show. So tonight I'm thinking when it will be really finished, we'll have a couple more screens that show the instruments working because their movements are kind of subtle and they need to be projected and enlarged. I'd like to get rid of the title cards. I think that modern audiences really don't need to be reading title cards to know what's going on, because the acting style is so over the top, you know. But in order to make the sequences work, and because I've scored through the title cards, you will hear pre-recorded Pam band music. And I'm sorry to do that for you. Part of my mission is to avoid the use of any MIDI technology and any sampling. So that will be eliminated in the future, but I do have to change the files. And so when the next file is loading in, there's dead space. So I created some music to fill in those spaces. And I'm going to do a quick systems check, so I'm going to show you what I'm working with. This is very much like working with a kaleidoscope. There was something that always fascinated me as a kid. And so this is a very complex kaleidoscope. There's a lot of stuff in there. But the challenge for me is to take a fairly limited amount of events and continue to develop them in an organic compositional way that generates something that sounds new and ultimately interesting, because as an audience, I would like for you to enjoy this. I'm working with three basic motors. A direct current motor, which is, those are over 100 and something years old. A solenoid, an electromagnetic motor, so again, very old technology, and a servo motor, which was developed last quarter century as a navigation device for toys, toy airplanes, toy cars. That's the servo. Servo motors just go back and forth. So for example, a spinning motor would sound something like this. It would sound like this. So those are the four different kinds of sounds. Then you will hear, and my favorite, you never get enough of this, the servo motors spin back, move back and forth like a windshield wiper, and by controlling the speed and the distance from its contact point with the drum head, I can create different dynamics, different textures. And by controlling the larger number of sequences, I can create rhythms. Then we get into some of the pitched instruments. The lead guitar, his name is Coble. The violin, which coordinates servos and solenoids. This is a solid body electric violin with a slider control. That was developed for a dentist in Weehawken, New Jersey. Toy piano. So right now I'm controlling it from the computer keyboard, and it's just like playing a piano. The rhythm that I type in is the rhythm that it plays. A nice out-of-tune auto harp give kind of a creepy Eastern European feel, because that's movie takes place in Transylvania. And an old electro chord. Rosie the theremin. I have to explain a little something about Rosie. It's the only instrument with a female persona. And as you know, it's a long-standing problem when you have a lead singer in a rock band. Rosie is the only instrument that does not generate natural sound. Now this is getting a little off track, but when you hit a drum or pluck a guitar, you are creating an infinite array of harmonics and subpartials. It's the same thing with like light or colors. I mean, there is this infinite array of these, and so that's why a photograph looks different than real life. It's why recorded sound isn't the same sound that you hear when you're in a concert hall. All these instruments generate full acoustic natural sound. Rosie is the first electronic instrument. It's a theremin. It was invented in 1920 by Russian physicist Leon Theremin. I've spent 25 years trying to figure out exactly how it works, and I'm not quite sure because it's one of those things that it's electronic, it's invisible, you can't see it, you can't taste it, you know, but it generates some kind of electronic interference pattern. So as you get closer to the antenna, and it's a radio antenna, the pitch goes up to forever until you actually touch it and you ground it out. These instruments were used, Beach Boys, Led Zeppelin, and the classic Forbidden Planet. Was also introduced in the film score of the Hitchcock classic, I can't remember. So Rosie is the exception. You know, that the theremin is the great granddaddy of all electronic music, for which everything generates until we get to the next level of the evolution, which is digital. So we are well under the digital envelope. PAMM stands for partially artificial musicians. And I like to call them partially artificial because they're partially real. And each one of these instruments features various mechanical solutions to sound and tone production. Austin second on drums, Mr. Creek on the double bass, Vinny, the toy piano, Park Devil out of tune auto harp, Bart 42, the concertmaster, Vinny, Dink, scratch, Zach, gold, the lead guitar, John, the original electric guitar, Jack, the solid body violin, and that's Pam wearing a mask. She was a discarded sculpture that my wife made, and I said, "No, you can't throw that away." She said, "No, it's terrible." I said, "She will become the figurehead of the band." So I kind of see her as the woman on the front of the ship. All of these are rescue instruments. They were discarded. Many of them were purchased at a used instrument shop in East Chester, New York. I think of myself as the NASA of robotic musicians. Everything is built by the lowest bid. I started working on this project about 20 years ago. I had started a children's theater company, and I was writing pieces for young audiences. And I was concerned that there was more sophisticated music designed for younger audiences. One of my favorite examples is Peter and Wolf. And so I wanted to add more pieces to that canon. And so I wrote Willie the Talking Worm, and Let's Fly South, and a whole bunch of sort of Dr. Funny stuff who made just weird things that don't work. But one of the bits I did was this thing called a Coble, and I attached the violin to a frame. And I pull a string that makes the bow go back and forth, and then I would pull other strings that would fret the notes. And I could play very a little one. And when I look out at the audience and I would see these kids with their mouths just hanging up, and I thought, well, I'm on to something. So I started collaborating with my brother-in-law, who's an electrical engineer. He introduced me to a thing called the basic stamp, which was one of the first microprocessors developed for hobbies. And from there, we developed the synchronization of these various motors. And that was the first generation of robotic violin. This is now, I think, like the 7th generation. Each generation featuring massive improvements and leap forwards in technology, but it's all being motivated by the sound. I'm a composer. I make my living playing violin, and I've been working in New York for 25 years. And in my spare time, I fool around with just unusual sounds and sound-making devices. Let me just go through and do like a systems check to show you all the various sounds you'll be hearing. And so this is my palette. And with these pitched and non-pitched instruments, I can control the motions of the motors so that I can get the pitch and rhythms that I desire based upon what they can do. I'm very sensitive to the issues of musicians being replaced by technology. It's a very old subject. It's amazing when you read articles from the turn of the century where they talk about this newfangled technology called the phonograph and how it's going to put musicians out of work. Well, not really. In fact, I think it increased the number of people going to concerts because I think there's something that just isn't captured in recorded music, the upper partials and harmonics. And I think these are kind of analogous to like other things we consume, like vitamins, and I think that the mind craves live sound. Live music, and that's why storytelling is the original theater. Primitive people around campfires telling the tales of the day to this incredibly sophisticated level of storytelling, this theater. I get easily distracted with my own thoughts because there's so many things I want to say and I want to talk about 10 things simultaneously. But I'll just say that this is a combination of all the things I enjoy doing. It's music, it's technology, it's theater, it's experimental music, it's electroacoustical music. It involves some programming, some mechanical engineering solutions. And what started out as a hobby is now turned into a full-blown obsession. And I'm constantly, because I have such a small, limited vocabulary, it's very challenging to make it as expressive and a wide spectrum of musical utterances. I'm not replacing musicians. Ironically, I may be replacing recorded music. because by using the silent film and providing live music, and it is live. I mean, these are kinetic sculptures, they're music-making machines, and you'll see if this was in the dark, and all you heard was the sound, you would swear that these are people playing instruments in ways that are kind of unusual, a little bizarre. I am trying to exploit the potential of what these instruments can do that people can't do. For example, they can play a lot faster and with a lot cleaner articulation. So that opens up a whole new world of music composition to me. I can do really obnoxiously complex rhythm patterns, where if I put it out on the stand in a session, people would just get up and walk out. Because there's no way in my lifetime we can coordinate 7s against 9s and 13s and 27s and 117th notes. Can't do it. These guys do it without a problem. What they don't do is play with lyrical beauty. And I will allow that realm to my colleagues and living musicians. Nosferatu was filmed, it was made in 1922 by a German film director who apparently never got the rights to the story. And so the movie was ordered by the German government to be destroyed. Well, this is a 1922 version of the illegal download. Without further ado, I think we will start the film.